Hey y'all, I'm Hope, and today I'm wrapping up all the books that I read in March. And this was a pretty good reading month for me because I read 6 books and I mostly enjoyed the things that I read, and I'm pretty happy that my reading seems to kind of be on the uptick now because I had not read very much in January and February. I'd been struggling to find time, but I think I've kind of found a balance now and I'm getting to read a little bit more. So really it was a good month and I'm looking forward to, but also like kind of cautiously optimistic for April. For my March reading, I read 4 books that I already talked about in my mid-month wrap-up, so I will link that down in the description below and up in the cards above, so you can check that out if you want to hear some in-depth thoughts on those books. But those books were The Solstice Cabin by Arden Powell, which I have downgraded since then to 2.5 stars, and then The Deep by River Solomon, which I gave 5 stars, Persuasion by Jane Austen, which I gave 4.5 stars, and Moriarty the Patriot, which I gave 3.5 stars. In the latter half of the month, I ended up reading 2 books, the first one being A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher, which was an arc. This just came out on the 28th, today's April 1st, and it just occurred to me I actually have this book. I forgot I had a physical copy of this book already. So A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. I had this as an arc, I read it as an ebook, and then this showed up just like yesterday, the day before. So anyway, I read this one and I did a full in-depth review of this in another video, so I will link that in all of the places as well. And that was a video where I played Phasmophobia while reviewing this book. So I was like exploring a haunted house while talking about a haunted house. I had a lot of fun filming it. I hope that y'all will enjoy that video or have enjoyed it. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book, and that review has much more in-depth thoughts, but kind of as a general overview, I found that the humor in this balanced real well with the horror. I thought there was a good tension and a good build-up of tension where you're not waiting too long for things to happen. There's always something kind of creepy slowly building up throughout the story, and I really liked that. I also really love the protagonist of this. She's an archaeoentomologist, and her role as a scientist really influences the way that she behaves throughout the story, which I thought was fun. This has great side characters. The antagonist is really interesting and is portrayed with a lot of kind of compassion and humanity in a way that I thought was really interesting, and really painted her as being a very complex person, but ultimately a person, which I really enjoyed and which I connected with in terms of just having recognized some qualities of the antagonist in someone in my own family who is not nearly as cruel as the antagonist is, but kind of having that connection on that aspect of this story, which is very much about family and about kind of the darker side of family, the legacy that they leave us with, and I really enjoyed the way that that was portrayed. So again, I will link my other video somewhere so you can check that out if you want more in-depth thoughts, and I promise you there are no jump scares in that video. I was playing Phasmo, which does have the capacity to jump scare, but we got a really calm ghost, so there are no jump scares, and I think I've also put that in the title of that one, so you'll be assured if you wanted to watch that or don't like jump scares, there's none in that video. Then the last thing that I read was The Spare Man by Mary Robinette Kowal, which it was a sci-fi murder mystery I've been really looking forward to. And this one I ended up giving, I believe, 3.5 stars. It was good, it wasn't great. And I think my main issue with this really is like the mystery plot, because everything else I loved. I think that the characters in this book are really compelling. This is following Tesla Crane and her new husband, Shal Stewart, who are recently married. They're on their honeymoon. They're on an interstellar cruise headed for Mars, and it's supposed to be like a 12-day cruise or whatever. They're on this cruise. Somebody gets murdered and Shal is framed for it, and that's all like in the very first couple of chapters, so I don't feel like that's spoilers. And so that's how they kind of get involved, is that somebody gets murdered, Shal's framed, and then Tesla has to try and kind of figure out what's going on. And I really enjoyed the dynamic between all of the characters. I think that Tesla's a really great protagonist, and I really liked that she's very flawed and she does make mistakes, and I think that that's interesting and that there's like consequences for her. I just really liked the way that she approached problems as well. She's a roboticist, and so she has this very like engineering oriented mind, and I think that that was really interesting in the way that she would then approach problems as she was coming up to them during the course of her investigation. Tesla also lives with chronic pain. She was injured in a lab accident, and so she has like screws and rods in her spine and deals with chronic pain, and has a service dog named Gimlet, who is perhaps the best character in the whole book. I love Gimlet. She's so cute. The murder is the weakest part because I think that the beginning and end of the mystery are not great. The middle portions of Tesla investigating, I really enjoyed. I liked seeing her kind of unraveling clues and pulling out all of these different possibilities and trying to figure out like what's a red herring, what's actually important. And I really enjoyed that middle investigation portion. I think the beginning is a little shaky because Shao gets framed based on very quickly acquired evidence. I don't know how they managed to get all this evidence against him in the amount of time it took Tesla to wash her hands and change skirts, but they somehow have done that. And their security chief is extremely tunnel vision, so he goes, okay, well, we have this evidence, I'm not going to look at anything else at all. And then there's just like a murderer running rampant on the ship while he's tunnel visioning on Shao and trying to prove that it's Shao. And so I didn't really like that aspect of it. And then the ending, I think, is a little bit convoluted and it goes a little off the rails. I don't think you can really guess the solution for this book, even with the clues presented. There's maybe elements of it you can get, but I think that the ending is a little bit overly complex, a little bit convoluted, and there's parts of it that, like, I read it and I was like, I have no idea what's going on because this whole thing has been happening in the background. Like, we find out somebody who's involved in the whole situation, and no suspicion has been cast on them up to this point, and it's resolved with a sudden, like, a side character figured something out, secretly messaged a different side character, and then that other side character kind of reveals it at the end. And so that was kind of all going on in the background without the reader being aware of it at all, which I didn't think made a whole lot of sense when I got there. I was like, what do you mean this guy's involved? How would we have known? And then the actual, like, antagonist, it was just a really convoluted ending, and I was a little bit frustrated that so many of the really interesting plot threads that had been raised throughout the middle portion where Tesla was investigating kind of get dropped. They don't ever really get answered. There's a lot of interesting stuff, like interesting twists that happen in the last like 2 or 3 chapters that are just like very sudden and we never get explanations for them. So there was a lot of that. I felt like the beginning was a little too convenient and the ending was a little too complex and convoluted, but I feel like the middle portion of the investigation is actually really fun to read, and I had a great time reading this book. Just in terms of enjoyment, I thought it was a very fun, very easy read. I read it pretty quickly, which is unusual for me right now, just with everything I have going on for school, so I like being able to kind of fit it in between other things is where I'm finding my reading time, and I got through this book really quickly doing that. So on the whole, love the characters, love the setting. It's really fascinating and there's lots of fun science elements to it, and I love the investigation portion. Not so convinced on the actual like solution to the mystery. But I would recommend this one if you like sci-fi mysteries at all. I think it's worth a shot. Maybe you'll like it more than I did. I just was a little frustrated with some of the plot points that got dropped near the end and the stuff that got introduced too close to the end for it to really matter. But yeah, that's everything that I read in March. I had a pretty good reading month, and I'm looking forward to April, and I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully it's not too rambly. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you did, I hope you'll consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. Currently posting every Tuesday and Saturday, so there is more content coming soon, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.